Hi folks, hope you are doing great. In this video, I am going to talk about how to log into AWS using WSO2 Identity Server. If you hear about WSO2 Identity Server for the first time, it's an open source identity and access management product released under the most business friendly Apache 2.0 license. You can download WSO2 Identity Server from WSO2.com and then under products pick identity and access management, and from here you can download the latest version of WSO2 Identity Server, which is at the time of this recording IS 530. I already have downloaded the product. You need to have JDK 1.8 plus and then again set up the Java home and then go to Identity Server home directory. Then inside the bin directory you can start the server with WSO2 server.sh. It will take around 40 to 50 seconds to get started in my local machine, and it starts on the default HTTPS port 9443. And if you need to change it, you can do it by modifying the offset parameter in repository conf carbon XML file. It's not yet started, and WSO2 Identity Server comes with an embedded LDAP server. If you need in a production environment, you can configure it to talk to an Active Directory, database, or any LDAP server. In this demo, Identity Server is acting as IDP. AWS is the service provider, and AWS uses IDP initiated SAML. So that's what we are going to do in this particular demo. In addition to SAML based login, AWS also supports OpenID Connect. Maybe in another demo I'll show you that. This demo will focus on SAML SSO IDP initiator. Okay. So the server got started. Now I can log into the management console of WSO2 Identity Server through the URL https localhost 9443. The default credentials are admin. They are from the embedded LDAP server. Here I need to download the IDP metadata XML file from the Identity Server because I need that when I create an IDP in AWS site. So I need to create an IDP in AWS site pointing to the Identity Server. To do that, I need to download this metadata XML file. You need to go to Identity Providers, President, Inbound Authentication Configuration, SAML to Web SSO Configuration, and click on Download SAML Metadata. Save the file, and then you need to log into the AWS console. Click on IAM here, and now we need to add an IDP. Click on Identity Providers, create provider, and pick SAML as the provider type. Give a name, let's say WSO2 IS. Choose file, pick metadata XML, which we just downloaded, and next step, and create. Okay, so now we got a trusted IDP created at the AWS side. So the way AWS works is different from how Salesforce and Google Labs work. Both in Google Labs and Salesforce, in addition to creating the trusted IDP, we need to provision the users who we want to log into those SaaS apps to Google Labs and Salesforce, and then define roles in there itself, right? You don't carry roles from the local IDP to Salesforce or Google Labs. Roles are defined in the Google Labs and Salesforce side, right? Because of that, you need to provision all the users from your local user store to Salesforce and Google Labs. But the model AWS follows is different. You don't need to provision any users from your local identity store to the AWS. What you do here is you create set of roles at the AWS side, right? And then you pick those roles and you assign those roles to the users in your local identity store who you want to log into the AWS, right? So that is what we are going to do. First, we need to create a role in AWS. You can create multiple roles. Click on roles, create role, and pick SAML2 or Federation. Okay, and here we need to pick the SAML provider. This is the one we just created. Okay, and check on allow programmatic and AWS management console access. That's it. Then click on next permissions. Now you can assign what permissions this role will carry. So let's say AWS API Gateway Administrator. That's what we want to have for this particular role. You can create multiple roles with multiple permissions or policies. Next review, and let's give a role. Let's say API Gateway Admin. Right. That's it. Create role. Okay. Now we have a role and an IDP. In AWS, for each resource, it creates an ARN. AWS resource name. Right. This is the ARN for role, unique across all the accounts in AWS. Then if you go to identity providers, if you click that, there's another ARN for that particular IDP. Now we are done with the AWS side. Now you need to go to the WSO2 identity server, and now we have the roles. Now we need to assign these roles to the users in identity server who we want to log into the AWS. Now we need to create a new claim or an attribute in identity server to hold these values, right? So we discussed about claims in detail in one of the previous videos. I'll share that link in the description below. To create a new claim, you need to go to claims, add, and then pick local claim and give you a name here. Give the name of the claim URI. Let's say claim/AWS role, and then you need to pick a mapped attribute here, right? This attribute should point to an attribute in the LDAP, right? So you need to change the LDF and maybe introduce a new attribute, or else you can use something being not used, or else change the LDF to introduce a new attribute and then create the new claim URI here. I'm not going to create a new one here because I don't have a new attribute in LDF, so I'm going to reuse an existing claim to hold this AWS roles. So there I will click on list, go to WSO2.org claims dialect, and then I'll pick the IAM claim here. Okay, this claim, edit it, and I just change the name and the description. Okay, and you can see it is pointing to the map IAM attribute from the LDAP, and then again I have this particular claim URI. Okay, so this is the claim URI pointing to my AWS role. This is not the neat way. If you want to do it in a neat way, you need to create a new claim URI and new LDAP attribute and point your new claim URI to that particular mapped attribute. But this is good enough for this particular case. I guess you understand what is done. Now if you go to list users and click on admin and user profile, you will see this AWS role thing. Now here I need to give the role name in a particular format. If you go to this blog, so this blog I wrote some time back, it explains all the steps to create the SAML login between AWS and the WSO2 identity server. Here if you go down, it shows you the format. It should be like the ARN of the role, comma ARN of the IDP. Should be here somewhere. Getting towards the end. Yeah. So this should be the format: ARN of the role, comma ARN of the IDP. So let me copy the ARN of the role first. Okay. Comma ARN of the IDP. You make sure there are no spaces. Okay, no spaces. Fine. Then again, there's a little trick here. Since we are using comma here, and then again AWS wants to treat the complete thing as a single attribute value, there's a little issue. The reason is, if identity server sees a comma in an attribute value, it will treat it as a multi-value attribute and break the attribute value from the comma. Right? But in AWS case, that is not what we need to do. We need to have the complete thing as a single attribute value. To avoid that, we need to do some configuration changes. Let's go back to the identity server. We need to stop it and open the file repository conf user management XML. So this is the file which has a configuration to connect identity server to the underneath user store. This has multiple configuration elements. Only one is uncommented. So this is the configuration to talk to a database, connect identity server to a database. And this is the one to connect identity server to an Active Directory or an LDAP in read-only manner. And this is the one for the Active Directory in read-write manner. And this is the configuration, the active configuration we are using, it's uncommented. We need to find this property, multi-attribute separator, and change it to this one. Okay, then it won't break by a single command. Okay, done. Now let's start the server again. Okay, so that step in fact explained in this blog. Okay, you can see it explains what to do. If you follow this one step by step, it should work fine. I think some part is outdated. In the AWS configuration here, it's a little outdated, but if you follow this video and go through this blog, you can sync things up. Okay, let's see. Let me say got started. Okay, some typo in the configuration file. Let's open it again and see. Sometimes this happens when I edit this comma. I guess yes. So this is a reason. It should be this one. This happens to the editor. Okay. Now if I start it again, it should be fine. Still not there. By the way, I'll copy this value. Okay, it got started. I need to log in again with my default credentials. Go to users, list users, and update the user profile of admin. You need to do this for all the users who you want to log into the AWS. There is a shortcut too. I'll explain that towards the end. Done. Update. Now we have created a trusted IDP in AWS side, and we have created one role. You can create multiple roles at the AWS side, and now we assign those roles to our users. Next step is we need to create a service provider in identity server side pointing to the AWS. Right? And keep in mind, AWS supports IDP initiated SAML SSO. Okay, let's give a name here, it can be any name. And then click on inbound authentication configuration, SAML SSO configure, and you need to give the issuer as in this blog, the value of issuer should be this one. This is same for any AWS account. Okay. And the assertion consumer URL is also the same. Right. It's also same. Then click on add here. You need to pick this one, enable attribute profile, and also include attributes in the response always. And since AWS using IDP initiate SSO, I need to check this too. Done. Register. After that, we need to do some claim configurations. If you go to this blog, you can see we need to send the roles of the user under this claim URI in the SAML response. Okay, so we need to define a custom claim dialect here. In fact, I discussed these things in detail in one of the previous videos. I'll share a link to that video in the description of this one. Click on define custom dialect, add claim URI, paste that thing, and now this is the AWS claim URI. This should map to our AWS role claim, right? So if you have created a new claim for AWS role, you need to pick that from here. But in my case, I just reuse the IAM claim URI, so I just pick it and make sure you check on requested claim. So this is the role of this particular user, or the roles of the user. Then click on add claim URI again. There's another one we need to pass. That's the role session name. This is mostly the user's name. Okay. I'll point it to my email address. Okay. Click on requested claim, and subject claim URI I can pick AWS role session name. That's all we need to do. Update. Done. Since this is using IDP initiated SSO, identity server will create a URL for this particular SP, and it will look like this. Like this, right? So this is pointing to the identity server, SAML SSO endpoint, and the SP entity ID is the SP entity, the SP entity ID that we use when creating the service provider. For AWS, this is a constant value. Right? You need to go to the management console here. Just for our reference, I'll put this in the description section, so I can just copy it from there. Okay. So when I copy this URL and paste it on the browser, this will first take me to the identity server. Then I authenticate. Then the identity server will generate a SAML response and send it to the AWS. Let me create a private window. Okay, I'll start the SSO tracer tool. We have used this tool before. This is to track the SAML flow between the IDP and the SP, and it's a Firefox plugin. Okay, let me paste this here. This will take me to the identity server. Now I can log in with my admin credentials, and it should take me to the AWS. And now you can see I am logged in as admin at WSO2.com with this particular role. And if you look at the SAML tracer, you will only see one SAML response. There is no SAML request here. Click on that, SAML. And if you go down, you can see we are sending the email address in this particular claim URI, role session name claim URI. And then we are sending the roles in this particular claim URI. Okay, so now that's how you can log into AWS through WSO2 identity server as the IDP. Couple of things I want to mention here. Okay. Now you may think that it's a little hard to do this configuration, like for each user you need to do this configuration, update the claims. Without doing that, what you can do is what we have done to other customers. you can just create a role here as the name of the AWS role, right? Let's say in this case it's API Gateway Admin, right? Then you can assign users to that particular role. Then identity server will internally generate the claim value looking at the role name, or else it will derive the role value looking at the role of that particular user. That's one approach. So it's not support out of the box, but if you need, you can just put a comment and I can share how to do that. But we'll ship that out of the box with IS 550. And the other approach is you can define a pattern here. If you go here, if you go to the service provider here, edit, claim configuration. Here, so this is once again supported from IS 550 onwards, which will be out by April next year. You can define a pattern here, right, which will include like let's say you can include the constant values in the claim value, right? Basically you will have a box here, another input box to enter a default value with some placeholders, right? So this is, if you look at the role, so this is constant, right? IDP ARN is constant for everyone. Only thing gets changed here is, if you look at the role, just the role name, this is also constant, right? So now you define this pattern, you put all the constant values, and for this particular part only you can put a placeholder pointing to the user's role claim, right? Then what will happen is identity server will pick the user's roles from the LDAP and build this string and then add that to the SAML response created from the WSO2 identity server, right? So those are certain improvements we are planning to do. That concludes the demo today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section below. Thank you very much.